It's math mix-up. Everybody's math. Gotta love the teacher. You happy? Miss Lowry.
Oh, no grid, no numbers. Oh my, what shall we do? Ha! Algebra will come to the rescue. Watch. All right, here we have a mystery point A and a mystery point B, and we have no idea their exact location. We just know which quadrant they're in, but we don't know their ordered pairs. So, yuck! How are we going to do this? We can still do it. We just have to describe our process with variables, excuse me. Okay, let's let A stand for x sub 1, y sub 1. Those are our mystery coordinates for A. All right, I have no idea what they are. Now, I have another mystery point down here, so we're going to let B, we can't use x sub 1, y sub 1 because we've already used those variables. So we're going to use x sub 2 and y sub 2. So that's two different ordered pairs. Now, the question is, how far apart are x sub 1, y sub 1 and x sub 2, y sub 2? It's the same type of illustration. Okay? We're going to start at A, and we're going to work our way down to B, down and over. So we're going to go down a portion, and then we're going to go over a portion. Now, all we have to do is describe these lengths right here, and then we can plug those lengths into the the Pythagorean theorem and find the length of AB. Now, in geometry, the distance between 2 points is always represented by writing the 2 points, the 2 capital letters, right beside each other without any notation above. And then that'll mean the distance from A to B. All right, well, let's take a look here. Let's take a look at this shorter leg. There's a certain amount of horizontal distance here. We're traveling from x sub 1 over to x sub 2. Now, when you're doing horizontal distance and you want to find the distance between any 2 points on a number line, we learned the other day that all you have to do is subtract them and take the absolute value. So I'm going to say the absolute value of x sub 1 minus x sub 2. Now, that's exactly the same thing as the absolute value of x sub 2 minus x sub 1. It really doesn't matter which point you call x sub 1, y sub 1, and x sub 2, y sub 2. Some books will write it like this, and some textbooks will write it like this. Either way is workable. Over here, the vertical change, we're going from y sub 1 down to y sub 2, or from y sub 2 up to y sub 1, however you want to look at it. So the distance would be the absolute value of y sub 1 minus y sub 2. Or, as I said down here, you could switch them. It doesn't make any difference. You will still get the same result because you're taking the absolute value. Alrighty, so now we know what our two legs, the length of our two legs would be. Pythagorean theorem says that a squared plus b squared will always be equal to c squared. Well, our a in this case is right here. Okay? It's the absolute value of x sub 1 minus x sub 2. So if I square that, that's equivalent to a squared. The b is right here. So the absolute value of y sub 1 minus y sub 2, if I square that, that's equivalent to b squared. And c is represented by our distance between a and b. So I'm going to write it like that. Okay? Now that's pretty darn ugly. But as long as you see from where all those letters come, it's not too bad. Now, I don't want the distance from a to b squared. I just want the distance from a to b. So what I need to do is square root both sides of this. When I square root both sides of this, it's going to look like this. the square root of the distance from A to B squared is just the distance from A to B. And then here we're going to have a giant radical, and it's going to go over top of all of this stuff. And by George, by Jingo, 2 squared. That right there, that ugly thing, is what we call the Pythagorean distance formula in the coordinate plane. Pythagorean distance formula in the coordinate plane. Okay? Distance is equal to the square root of all that. Woo! All right, so let's take a look at an example. Find the distance between the points 4, 11 and 0, 7. Okay? Remember, this is x sub 1, y sub 1. And we'll let this be x sub 2, y sub 2. It doesn't matter which one is which. They can be interchangeable. All right, so the distance would then be equal to giant radical sign. Okay? All we have to do is subtract the two x's, take the absolute value, and then square. So it'll be the absolute value of 4, take away 0, absolute value squared, plus the absolute value of, now we're going to just subtract the y's. 11 minus 7, absolute value closed, and then whole amount squared. All right, so our distance will then be equal to the square root of 4 minus 0 is 4, the absolute value of 4 is 4, so it's 4 squared, plus 11 take away 7 is also 4, and then we're going to go ahead and square that. Okay, so this is going to be 16 and this is going to be 16. So we're going to get the absolute value of 16 plus 16. So the distance is equal to now the square root of 32. Again, that's not a perfect square, so we're going to have to use our calculators and get a decimal approximation. The square root of 32 is approximately 5.7.
Yo, it's Math Mix-Up. Everybody's math. Gotta love the teacher. Who dat?